One thing that I want to say that is extremely important is that it's very, 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 very extremely important. Then when you talk about those presentation of those consulting presentation, it's extremely important that you make a sale. So yes, you should talk about the what needs to be done, but the most important thing is to make a sale. So selling everything you have to say, making a strong argument is the most important thing. You are making a sales and you will be judged on how good you are making these sales. Anything about the syllabus or whatever. If you don't do it now, you can do it later. There's no issues in this being done right now. If it comes later, just write it down, and then when we wait for the people to start making their presentation, you can jump in and ask me a question. Yes, Brooke.
So I know that Danica had a question in the chat. We're allowed to use the provided PowerPoints, like the format of the provided ones, correct? Or do we have to start from scratch and make our own?
No, like I said, you can use 100%, 100% the same, change nothing, or you can change everything or something in the middle. You know, it's like you buy a used prom dress. You can just use it as it is, or you can make some adjustments. It's up to you how you feel with this slide. Maybe you think you can make a better argument. Maybe you think you want to change the order. It's really up to you. You're making a sale. It's you have to feel comfortable in these shoes. So you have to make sure the shoes are the way you want them to be. So adjust as much as you want. What have people have done in the past with that presentation? In the past, people have not changed much this presentation. Not a lot. I've not seen a lot of changes. Most people have been pretty happy with the way it is, because the biggest problem is not so much, it's to really explain the discovery, because you see in everything you have to make a discovery of an opportunity, a discovery on how to go about this opportunity, and that's the most important thing. Here's the same thing it's going to be for Andrew James. Every group's going to find several opportunities, at least one big one, and then they're going to have to think about steps in order to be successfully taking care of that opportunity or those opportunities. And that's what's important. One, the opportunity, and two, the steps to get to that opportunity. And then in between, and I think I've wrote it to you between the past 7 days, is the why and the because. The more there are whys, the more there are because, the better. And in fact, I'm sorry, Brooke, I don't know if you're presenting today, but that's what I emailed the people presenting today. Is I said, please, not that it was not done well, it was very, very well done last week, but I said even more why and even more because than last week. And the reason for this is we are consultants. So that's how we paid. We paid for explaining what needs to happen and why it needs to happen this way. So we are, like a lawyer says, why you're guilty or why you're not guilty. That's what they pay. That's how you judge a good lawyer and a bad lawyer, is the quality of their why. Consultant is the same, is the quality of your why. Okay. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, start again from the same thing. So what is marketing? Marketing is a process which is called a delivery, where there's sets of things that you do. You do it for a customer, not everyone, not every customer is the same. In order to get what? Satisfaction. Satisfaction is the one word that could replace everything. What does it mean? If people are satisfied, they keep coming back, and you could save money, and you could even do better marketing and even reduce your expenses of marketing because people are satisfied. But you don't want just to satisfy people, you also want to make some money, so that way you can make better product and you can increase people's satisfaction. And what is that called? That's called profit, because with profits you can do some research and get closer to your customers, get better satisfaction to them. And you want to be someone that think about the long term. So it's a relationship with these customers. It's not just ripping them off, or it's not a one time, it's a multiple times. And multiple times caring for those people, you will eventually be authentic and you will eventually care for them, eventually satisfy them, and eventually keep them and grow your customers. And that's the whole concept, the whole philosophy that I've been explaining for the past 2 weeks. That's my summary again. But you don't think just about satisfaction. You also think about making some money. So making some money is very important. Businesses should be thinking about money. They should be thinking about profit, even if they are non-profit organization, because eventually you want to make profit in order to grow your organization. You invest your profit the way you want it in order to make people more satisfied. You want to create value. So it's this idea that you're not just making products or making solutions, but you're making something that people are thinking it's valuable because it serves the needs. And then you want to be someone as a business, as an organization that is willing to work for free. So this idea is the idea that if you're a business that only work for money, or if you only work to get something, then you're very short-term oriented and you're not long-term oriented. Thinking about the community, thinking about being ethical, thinking about the society, thinking about the long-term view makes you one that wants to collaborate, someone that wants to learn, and then wanting to work for free is something that is of great importance. If you don't believe me, you can just read about someone called Robert Kiyosaki. And Robert Kiyosaki is probably the most famous business entrepreneur in the United States of America. Maybe you don't know this name, but maybe you know the book, which is called Rich Dad, which is one of the most sold book. If I just ask, I'm sure there's more than one person in this class that knows about Rich Dad and Robert Kiyosaki. Anyone knows about Robert Kiyosaki?
Me.
Okay, one person.
I definitely know the name.
So my recommendation is you go on YouTube, you put Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, and you look at a video. And if you're someone that really care about business and people that say, you know, what they think and are really inspirational, is a little bit abrasive because he's someone very successful. He doesn't like to waste his time. So sometimes in some interviews, he's a little bit short, but he's, I think, someone that's very valued by me and by millions of people. So there must be something good about him. And one of his big things is if you're not willing to work for free, and you know, he's a multi-millionaire. It's funny to hear someone that's so rich, but he tells you that's how he started. And that's how he evaluates people. He evaluates people by how likely are they willing to work for free. And I've used this as an evaluation myself, and I found a lot of people that don't want to work for free means that they are not willing to learn. And that's this thing, is if you're willing to learn, to become better, you work, because work is very important. If your end game is how quickly can I retire, maybe it's not as good. Work should be something that you enjoy, and work should be something that allows you to feel alive and be happy. And so Robert Kiyosaki is strongly recommended. Great, inspirational, not probably the most in America. So when you looking at growing your business, you're thinking about the information system, and the marketing information system is this method that you will be using in order to collect information. What are the three sources of information? There's the company's records, so the sales records, the customer records, and all this. Then the second one is called the marketing intelligence. So the marketing intelligence is different than the marketing research. Marketing research is done at one point in time when there's a problem. Our sales have gone down for children by 5% in December compared to the previous December. However, women over 50 years old, it went up by 20%. And then you have a question is, why did it go up for this group of women, and why did it go down for the children? Then you have to do some research. And so there is a question, and it's a temporary thing. You have a question that needs to be answered. That's marketing research. Marketing intelligence is constantly looking for information in order to see if there is any changes. So it goes back to military intelligence, which is the same thing, which is that you constantly monitor, scan, in order to see any changes that you could then do specific research on in order to find out what is going on. So marketing intelligence, what could it be in business? It's reading the social media of your competitors for the sake of marketing intelligence. Going to trade shows and visiting the booth of your competitors, that's marketing intelligence. Looking at their websites, buying some of their products and checking them out, talking to their customers. All of this is marketing intelligence for the sake of discovering something. But that's competitive marketing intelligence, talking about the competitors. Then you could also do this for the consumers, is you could have an audit of your constant audit of your consumers and the changes that they make in order to see a change before anyone. So it's very important to be the first one to see changes, because then you can take advantage faster than anyone else. And then marketing research is therefore collecting information for the sake of answering a problem. There's a problem, you need a solution, therefore you do some research. There's two types of data that you will collect. There's secondary data, which you collect first, and primary data that you usually collect second. Secondary data is already existing. So it's the one that is readily available, it's already published. You collect it so that way you may get an answer fast, free, and just enough to get moving. If you don't have the answer because the information is not available, or maybe it's available but it's extremely expensive or extremely dated or extremely biased, then you collect the data yourself, and that's called primary data. There's three layers of research. So this slide is a slide that I could talk about for 5 minutes, or I could talk about seriously for over an hour. So I'm going to try to keep it in between. So there's a lot in there. But I want to keep it simple in telling you that there's three levels of research. And these three levels are explained by the level of involvement. So if you want something that is basic, no, it's not so basic, because the first layer is not it can be basic or it can be in more depth. So the first layer, it can be basic, it's called exploratory research, if you have a question and you find the answer from existing data. So you wonder, what are the favorite music genre of people who live in Long Beach, on a certain area of Long Beach for a certain age. So then you have a database, you look inside, and then you find the exact gender that is people's favorite within a certain time period. This is exploratory research. You look for the information. It took you 25 minutes. You have the information in 25 minutes. That's the most basic. But then in exploratory research, you can go beyond doing secondary data analysis, which means just collecting existing information. You can actually do primary data analysis. But the primary data analysis that you do is called qualitative. So you have two types of research type of data, besides secondary, existing, and primary that you collect. You also have qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research are open-ended questions with essentially a few people answering at length. So people are telling you their opinion by being interviewed, and you are recording this interview. This is called qualitative research. By definition, qualitative research is very deep, but not representative of the population, which means that you could ask 40 people, 40 interviews, and you do one interview per day. So it's 40 days of work. And it could be an hour. And you're going to try to get the opinion of those 40 people. Versus quantitative research, it could be giving a questionnaire with 25 questions to these people, and maybe it's going to take them 5 minutes to answer. And that's quantitative, because you're not going to know much of the opinion of that person, very little about their opinion. You're only going to learn their attitude at best, and their frequency that's going to belong to a large sample of people that's going to try to be representative of the population. So quantitative research is let's have representativeness of the population, because the purpose is to get a statistical significance with some kind of reliability, where we can trust a few answers by many people. Qualitative research is many answers by a few people. So you see the difference? Hundreds of questions, 10 people, versus one question, 100 people. So you don't get the same thing. The problem, there's pros and cons for qualitative and quantitative. And the pros of qualitative is it's more realistic, but probably more the explaining the people's motivation. So there's more answers to the question, why do they do X? Why do they buy? In qualitative type of research, meaning like you're interviewing people. However, the problem is it doesn't give you an indication of what people think as a representative group of people. So what people think if they are uneducated, between 40 and 45 years old, and they live in Kentucky. This can only be done by doing a large quantity of people with a few questions about what they think about something. Why do you go to the gym? If you say, why do people go to the gym? You're going to get different answers if you ask as an interview versus if you ask in a questionnaire. In a questionnaire, people will tell you to lose weight in a questionnaire, to stay young in a questionnaire, to be fit in a questionnaire, and all of that, to stay healthy in a questionnaire. But in an interview, not the first 5 minutes, but after 30 minutes talking about this, they will tell you it may be because of something having to do with their self-image, maybe having to do with being more appealing sexually. So, you know, if you were to put in a questionnaire, you go to the gym to be more sexually appealing, nobody would pick that. But if you were honestly discussing that with someone, they may tell you that's the number one reason. It's like, wow, how come you get two different answers depending if you ask the person face to face after you have developed a relationship and a rapport versus if you're asking it through a questionnaire, because there are different methods. And that's why you don't want to be misled to think that one is better than the other. They're very different. So in a questionnaire, you could ask them, you know, do you put sugar in your coffee? Yes or no? You want to ask this in a questionnaire because people are not puzzled and they're mostly likely to tell you the truth, you know, versus there's no need to have the person in front of you eye to eye and say, tell me the truth. Do you put sugar in your coffee or whatever? It's not necessary. So both methods are very good, but for different reasons. And that's why I strongly recommend, I don't really strongly recommend, I sort of demand, and I don't demand very many things, but I demand that you do interviews. You need to interview some people in this class versus doing questionnaires. I strongly recommend not to do questionnaires. There's always one group that tried to do questionnaire and it's sort of a disaster because it takes a lot of work to do questionnaires. So I strongly recommend that you don't do it. However, I demand that you do interviews because it's not that complicated. In both cases, you have to come up with some questions. Interview questions are open-ended. They don't have to be asked in a certain order because it's going to be through an interview, so you can skip questions. If people answer the question, you don't ask it. If you have 5 questions and you ask the first one and the person answer it and then start talking and answering the second one, you don't go back and ask the second one. It's been answered, so you have to pay attention. But you have to have a questionnaire, but it's not going to be asked to many people. How many people should you ask? A dozen of people, and oftentimes you have answers. It's very, very important. What kind of qualitative research could we do? You could do interviews of people. Maybe you make these people listen to the music of Andrew James, show them some pictures. Maybe you do some games and try to find out how they think, how they feel. Why is this? Why is that? Because. You want to get as many because as possible. So which type of research you're going to do for this client? You're going to do the first layer, the blue layer, the one which is called exploratory research, by collecting existing data, so that's secondary data analysis, and doing primary data analysis by doing qualitative research. You should not go into quantitative research, which is the second layer, the yellow layer, which is descriptive research. So this one essentially looks at statistical significance by using the most common method of questionnaires and surveys. The third is causal research. So that one is an experimental research where you try to experiment cause and effect by subjecting people to different treatments and see the different response to different treatments. So you give 100 people a description of a product, and you tell them the product is $20. Then you take another 100 people and you give a description of a product, and you tell them it's $150, and then you take another group and you give no description and you tell them it's 100, and another group, you tell them it's of 100 people, it's 150. And so what you try to see is which description as an experiment has caused a different response with the price and all this. So you experiment things, and usually this is done through a lab, and it could be done in for the music. It's done for the music industry. It's done for the motion picture industry by having people listen to different songs and then rate the songs and make decisions like this. But you don't have the opportunity to do causal research and the time for Andrew James. Another thing that I want to say is to do good causal research and to do good descriptive research, you have to do exploratory research. So, which means that the blue, to do the yellow, you need to do the blue, and to do the green, you need to do the blue. You don't have to do the yellow in order to do the green. So it doesn't go 1, 2, 3. To do 3, you have to do 1 and 2. But to do 2, you have to do 1, and to do 3, you have to do 1, which means that you always have to do qualitative research. What? Oh, that's a very novel thing, which means that everyone has to do some interviews, which means that before you do a questionnaire, you have to do interviews. There's no such a thing as a good questionnaire without having done interviews before. Because to do a good questionnaire, what you usually do is you look at secondary data and you find existing questions that have been asked. Then you have a set of questions and you say, these questions are going to be the one we're going to have also inside our questionnaires. And then 2, what other things should we ask? And then you do an interview in order to find other questions that you could ask in your questionnaire. So if you want, the steps is 1, secondary research, 2, interviews, and then 3 questionnaires. So that's why I don't want you to do questionnaires, because most of the time, when I say most of the time, I'm going to say 100% of the time, there's people that I hear that I say don't do questionnaires for some reason that they do it. It's almost like they want to do what I tell them not to do. And then when they do questionnaires, they just do questionnaires without doing the interview. But it cannot be done because it's going to be a poor questionnaire if you haven't done interview before. Save yourself time and labor, just do interviews. Now, doing interviews is not as easy as may seem, because you require someone that's really good at asking questions, but then someone also that is good at conducting the interview, and someone that is good at analyzing what people have answered. So the thing is, you do a first interview, you ask some questions, then you listen to the interview because you recorded the interview, and then you find, oh, we should have asked this question. That's going to be the second interview. And then this person said X, Y, and Z. I wonder why they said X, Y, and Z. That's going to be the second interview. So when do you stop doing interviews? Is the magic number 12 or the magic number 27? No, you stop doing interviews when you start getting the same answers. So you do 5 interviews and then you're starting to get the same answers. There's no need to do another 5 interviews. Usually when you start getting the same answers means that you really covered well. And now it's time to interpret these people's answers. Now, the next big mistake people do, and even I tell you right now what's the next biggest mistakes, there will be at least one team that will make this mistake, which is that when they do interviews, they report the interviews in percentage. You cannot report the result of interviews in percentage. Anyone knows why you can't report the results of interviews in percentage? So I give you an example. Why you cannot say 2 people out of 10 said that they did not like hip hop, which means 20% of the people don't like hip hop. Why is it that you can't say that?
Is it because it doesn't signify that you only took a small sample size?
Yes, because of the sample size. Percent means per 100. It's a French word. Per, par, cent, cent, which means 100. which means that you cannot use percent unless you have 100 and plus. So when you interview 10 people, you're far from being 100. In fact, you're 10 times less than 100. And if you say 2 don't like rap, that doesn't mean it's 20%. It means it's 2. So then if you said we interviewed 100 people and 20 didn't like it, and then you said 20%, would that be correct? It's better. It's not really correct because you did interviews. So therefore, it would not be a method that you can use as quantitative, and therefore report quantitative data, which is percent, with a percentage. But at least it would mean that you maybe know French, or at least that you understand what percentage means. How often do people make this mistake? Easily 50% of the time. People do ask 10 people and they say 5 said this, 6 said that, therefore it's 60%, 50%. People make this mistake all the time. So then now you're thinking, gee, I made that mistake, man. I don't want to say how many times I made that mistake. And I've seen so many people make that mistake. Yes. So how do you say it? So you just say 2 out of 10, 6 out of 17. But you only say this for the sake of describing. You don't say this for the sake of giving some kind of statistical number. You just say, on our 17 interviews, there's 7 that say that they didn't like rap. Those 7 that said they didn't like rap, we asked them why you don't like rap. And then we went into an hour on why they didn't like rap. So it's just for the sake of description. It's not for the sake of giving some feeling of statistical evidence. Does that make sense? I mean, what I just told you right now, we could stop the class, and if you understood what I just said like this, that would be a miracle, because that's the mistake that a lot of people make, and it's very current. And it's a bummer because it shows that they already don't understand. Do you have any questions?
I have a quick comment. That's a great distinction, and I did not know the meaning of percent, actually, the way it's translated, per 100. The only exception might be, and this is kind of really going out on a limb, but let's say you're doing a survey of the living Nobel Prize winners between age 40 and 50 or something like that, which is going to be a very small number of people, less than 100. But obviously you wouldn't make a percentage there, because it's, like you say, it's more accurate just to say the number, the numerator compared to the denominator, just state that. But that's a very good distinction. I like that, the point you're making.
I'm glad you understood it, and it opened an interest for you to figure out the number of times that you may have heard people make that mistake, or maybe even yourself made that mistake, because it's very important.
Yeah, no, I have, yeah.
Yeah, because it means that people can't judge. They think they can judge, but how can you judge when you don't even understand statistics? Do you know what I'm saying? And that's oftentimes what happens is people have a poor understanding of statistics and a poor understanding of judging odds. And then when they don't understand that there's qualitative odds and the quantitative odds, but the quantitative odds is another ball game, is how can you judge statistics? You can pretty much say anything you want with statistics, because then you can always play with the data to make it shine one way or another. That's why that's why I don't trust quantitative research, because there's no such a thing as anything true. It depends on the bias of the person making the research. However, qualitative research, what's interesting is that you really hear what people have to say. But the problem is, how many people have you asked, and what have they said, and what have you interpreted from what they've said? And what have you interpreted from what they said that made you research on something else further after you heard what they said? And this curiosity is what makes you discover opportunities. People ask me, where do you find most of the opportunities? Most of the opportunities are found by asking the customers. How do you ask the customers? You just do an interview. And that's how you find opportunities. Yes, because in the interview, they're going to tell you their feelings, and these feelings are going to be processed further. You process the feelings and their attitudes and their speech to then go and do further research and further direction and further themes and subjects, that eventually when you start removing all the stones and looking under every stone and going deeper, suddenly you start seeing the world in a different way. And it's possible, depending on who you ask, that you found that these people have told you things that are actually showing you what people are going to want in the future. But nobody is saying, I want this today or in the future, because it's very difficult to ask someone, what is it that you want in the future? People don't already know most of the time, unless they are experts. But what happens is experts, after a while, they become complacent and they are just experts of judging the present and the past. But experts are people that are the wave of the future. And there's not too many. And in fact, most of the time when you get older, it's very difficult to be an expert of the future. You're oftentimes an expert of the past. So that's why there's a company, maybe you've heard this company called Zara. Zara is one of the most innovative company for fashion in the world. It's from Spain. And for the longest time, the owner of Zara was the wealthiest man in Europe. And now he's probably in the top 5. He started with $1 and now he's one of the wealthiest. And for the longest time, he didn't do any marketing or at least no advertising. But what he was doing is using the concept of influencers, design influencers. So he was using influencers 30 years ago, but design influencers. So he was recognizing people in the street. There were people that had a style which was going to be future forward style. And then he would ask these people to take pictures. He would give them disposable cameras. That was 35 years ago. After that, he gave them digital cameras and so forth. And these people would take pictures and then upload the pictures to a server that went straight to designers. And designers will look at specific pictures made by those influencers, those design influencers, or those fashion inspiration people. And they would see all these pictures, and eventually these designers will say, oh, I see a theme in all of these different people from everywhere in the world, from different cities in the world. They were paid to just take pictures and upload them. And they would see the theme, and this theme would influence the designer, and the designer would make a specific piece of clothes. They would make this specific piece of clothes in a limited edition that they would let the fan of Zara know where those clothes were going to be to sell, and then they would go and see the response from the fan. And if the fan loved the piece of clothes, then they would mass produce it and then sell it everywhere. So when you think about it, that was brilliant, because these people were not fashion creators. They were picking the fashion from the brain from specific people in the street in order to create the fashion of the future. So this was purely qualitative research, if you want, that drove innovation. I hope I made myself clear, but I think this is, could this be implemented in the music industry? Oh yeah. Has anyone done it? Not that I know, but that would be an amazing way. You would have the street, specific people from the street, constantly creating data and uploading it to some label, whatever. And then in the label, you would have some amazing people that will listen to the street beat that will be constantly created on a daily basis. And then they would come up with music that they would invent from this. It would be
Professor?
Yes.
I was just a quick question in reference to that.
Yes.
I know that you said for Zara, they had people who were fans of the brand take pictures. Was that correct?
So they're not fans. They were fashion forward people.
Okay. So it was like a
not
specific,
fans of the brand.
Okay. It was a specific sample size of people who knew fashion. And
yeah, there were people that if it's like you ask this person, what's the number one thing in your life? Is fashion. I just love fashion. I'm constantly changing clothes. I'm buying clothes that I cut. I'm buying clothes that I dye. I change the colors. I do stitching on them. I experiment with material on all these different things. And
right.
they would be in the street, and then they would see a piece of material somewhere, and they would take a picture in a different direction and saying that should be what I see. This is what I see.
Okay, so the idea would be, in a sense, instead of just open source crowdsourcing, that's more of a specific view crowdsourcing. Would that be
exactly,
accurate?
exactly.
Okay.
Specific view. So then the trick is to find those people, right? And
Right.
to know that those people are just a producer of fashion, but they are not.
Okay.
they're just people, but they have the street vibe. They are on the street. Because
Okay,
when you
so you
become
need
a
a specific.
designer,
Sorry.
yeah, when you become a designer, it becomes tough. Because your designer, they just hired you. Actually, that's what happened to me. I started working a month ago with a designer that was hired by one of the top design house in Paris. And he was just hired. I worked with this design company for 2 years, and they just hired this guy. And this guy just starting, so he wants to be the good guy. Oh, I can call him any hour. He's ready to work. He wants to succeed. He's eager to succeed. So he's like, when I ask him, give me 2 or 3 suggestions, he doesn't give me 2 or 3. He gives me 18 different suggestions. So yesterday I had a meeting and we were talking about all kinds of things. And in the meeting, I say, oh, did you see that guy, Oliver? Isn't it amazing? He says, oh yeah, Oliver is the best. What happens in Oliver in 10 years, he's an executive designer. We can't do this anymore. He's comfortable. He's married. He's got a rent a vacation house. He's got 3 dogs. You know what I'm saying? Suddenly it's like comfortable. He doesn't do this anymore. So you can't count on this guy to be innovative anymore. So who's going to be innovative? So then you have to think about a way to create innovation. And
Right.
that's what Zara was doing, is say, no. My designers are not the one that do the innovation. The innovation comes from those people on the street. You pay
Right.
them a lot. You don't pay them a lot because all they do is they upload images. They have a thing which is upload 5 images that inspire you to do today, created an emotion today. And then it's this database that becomes the source.
Gotcha. So in that regard, it would have to be a specific group of people who were sampled, or it's a very specific team who's interpreting that, because otherwise it might
exactly.
it might just be noise. So it's like it's a specific type of
exactly.
Okay,
so noise.
thank you.
Yeah, you want to remove the noise. So then the quality of this is the quality of the people that through their eyes can recognize the quality of those of the primary source, and then the people interpreting the primary source. They have to be amazing.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And do you need a lot of people? You don't need a lot of people. That's what's amazing. But what you want is you would want people in, you wouldn't want everyone to be from LA. You would want, or from London, is you would want to say, you know what, we need people from maybe Tokyo, Berlin, LA, Miami, New York, Paris.
So essentially you have to do market research to see who is going to be best suited for this job of doing market research.
Well, in that situation, you would not do market research. I think you would yourself do interviews. And the people that would do the interviews will be the first interpreter, because they would be the one that sense the value of who they want to get stuff from.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you understand that, you could, right now, I don't know, you may be totally excited by what you hear, because you say, my God, this in the music industry would be just crazy to, and it has already started with this concept of beats. All the people uploading beats and all the different sources where you can get music and hearing some small portions, and the whole thing now, because of connections and digital sourcing and all this, has created in some way. But you're right, in some way, so also it has a lot of noise, because there's so much that you don't have enough hours in the day. This is cultivating the people that really hear it right. Danica, you have your hand up for a while.
Yeah, kind of tied in with what we've been talking about. Do you have I don't know how else to put this, a suggestion for best practices for like interpreting the interviews that you do, the data you receive?
Well, for
the gut.
Yeah, for the qualitative research.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And you answered maybe 30%. All right, gut. But before gut, there's a skill, and the skill comes from you have some of it naturally. And number one is experience. So the people that say, but I've never done it before, that doesn't mean they're not good. But the fact that they haven't done it, it's likely they're not going to be very good. so it's one of those things is the more you do it, the better you become. So if you're skilled and you do it a lot, you become very good. If you are not skilled and you do it a lot, you become better.
Does
You have
that
to do it.
same go for like the questions that you ask in the interview, or
Oh, yes,
like,
yes. Yes, because there's the problem of it could be different. The person that is the person doing the interview and the person who is interpreting the interview. It's different skill set.
Mhm.
However, it's a little bit, I have a brother who's becoming quite a celebrity in Hollywood right now. But what happens is he went to a school where he was learning acting. And then he learned to be a producer, and then he learned to be an editor. The fact that he learned to be an editor made him a better actor. And the fact that he learned to be an editor made him a better at filming and thinking about the location and all of these different things. And that makes total sense, because it's the same here. Is if you are learning to be an interpreter, eventually you do it enough that you learn to be a better interviewer, because you already sort of doing some of the interpretation at the time of the interview.
So is the job of creating the question or the job of the interviewer the one that requires like the most precision or the most expertise? Like which is a better,
Well, yeah. So that's another excellent question. Yeah.
or is that a chicken and the egg kind of situation?
Well, I would say when you go do the interview, the most important is not the question. The most important is to have, what I'm going to tell you is going to destabilize you maybe a little bit, is to have the answer.
No, that makes sense.
So you go with the answer, but you're not close-minded. And so you're going to try to see if you have the answer by doing the interview without telling them, I want those answers. Can you give me the answer? But by going there, doing the interview and checking if your answers, what you thought were the answers, are the answers. And the open-mindedness is not that you want to be right. The open-mindedness means that you want to be surprised by an answer that you didn't expect.
Got it. So the answers that you receive are more like you're kind of hoping that they add nuance to the hypothesis that you were testing.
Exactly. Fantastic. That's exactly right. So you go there with your answer, then your gut feeling tells you, is that the answer? Maybe you've done some secondary research, you know the answer. You do the interview, then you find your answer. But when you hear your answer, you're not totally happy because you go, so you're validating my answer. Is there anything new? But you can't say that. That's the job of interviewing. And then suddenly you find a new thread. It's like a gold mine. And you just see a little small piece of gold. And then you pull and pull and pull. And you have more that come, and bigger nuggets. And then that's joy, because suddenly you just go, wow, I found a mine in there. And that mine is translated into opportunity for a business person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is really, really helpful. This is making me kind of excited about possibilities. Thank you.
And then when you do this for business, for your own success, for the success of your team or the job you have, it's fun. It's so fun. I love it personally, because it's an adventure. It's an expedition, so that's why some students totally get it and some don't. And obviously what I hope is that there's always one in each group that totally get it and say, I will do the interview. You're going to help me with the interview. And then they help with the recording and they help with some of the things. And this person does the interview and everybody sort of watch and say, oh my God, that's it. We're digging for opportunities. We're digging for gold.
I think that's a really good way to put it, because that sort of humanizes the marketing research a little bit, because you're putting so much value in your experience with just one individual, and that's, I don't know, that's kind of magic.
Yeah, and so it's very good. You totally follow me. That's why I said maybe that's going to make sense now that I say it again. That's why you stop when you're starting getting the same answers. Maybe the same answers come after 12 interviews. Maybe they come after 67 interviews. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, the better you are at interviewing, the faster they come. So now that's going to answer another one, which is, should you interview people who are consumers or experts? Not always. Because what you do is you're looking for a brain that is on and interactive. And so that's the thing. It's like the worst is if you interview someone that is not there and is not cooperative. But then when you interview someone who's like on the same wavelength and they give you the things and they here's the why, I don't understand your question. Oh, I see your question. That's interesting. So that's what you do. But then sometimes what you say is, let's not do an interview, let's do a focus group. So suddenly, instead of having one person with you, is you have 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you do the same thing. And this time, it's also to get the reaction from people, hearing other people talk, agreeing, disagreeing, adding, correcting.
Do you see when you do like focus groups, I guess a difference in the kinds of opinions that people present because maybe they're more influenced by the others than they would be on their own?
Absolutely. When you do focus groups, the problem is that you have social desirability.
Right. That was what I was getting at.
Yeah. So social desirability is the problem. However, it's mitigated, which means it's offset by the fact that you also get people bouncing from what other people have said that they would have not said unless they heard someone's opinion. It's sort of energize the discussion.
Is there a way to strike a balance between the like social desirability and any kind of hierarchies that develop themselves and strict individuality?
Yeah. So what happens is the good nature of the people there, and usually I have the same thing in classes. If you have a class of 100 people, and you have 3 people that are very negative, they can totally spoil 97. So what happens is it's very important for everyone to see the benefit of not being a silent student and all of this. And it's the best is when there's those 97 students that tell the other 3 and say, okay, shut up, we don't need you. We're going to enjoy this class and we don't need you. And then the 3, they disappear. So I do oftentimes trying to jump in and say to the 3, that the door is open, they don't have to be there. But the reality is when it's the students empower themselves, and then it does this. So when you have an interview with 5 people, if these 5 people can see that it's like a game, it's like a role, and they are just going to spill their brain, and they're just going to bounce from each other, and it's going to be an intellectual exercise to just express your feelings and opinion in order to go deeply on the subject that is the various subject that is being covered, and you're not being judged. So it's very important that the person doing the interview has this puts this situation where they feel like nobody's being judged and there's no good or bad. So the interviewer is very important in setting this sensation, the feeling, the ambience.
So that's kind of the best you can hope for as the interviewer, is to just set a space and hope for the best.
Yes. Well, so what happened is, when students ask me, should we select the person you interview, is oftentimes I say, don't be too selective, but you don't want to take people just because they are sort of looking like human being. You also want these people to want to be interviewed and know that they're going to have to be somewhat maybe go into personal things and intimate things and so forth. And if they're willing to do that in front of other people, then they're going to be great, because they're going to tell things. Oh, this happened to me in the past, or that, or I tried this, didn't work for me because, and then you go into the because and why and so forth. It's a lot of why, and no judgment. And they can see there's no judgment. It's just a question of depth. And so the interviewer is very important, because it's someone, it's a little bit like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Is if you can't trust this person, it's unlikely that you're going to respect and say much. So there needs to be a situation of respect, and it needs to be a situation where there's the interviewer is someone that speaks the least as possible, but sound like they're listening. They're just an amazing listener without judging anything. And they are in charge of the focus group, and they are not giving priority to anyone. And they are monitoring that everybody has equal time and no hierarchy or ranking. And it's freedom and self-expression. And if you can create this, and then you have to come organized and prepared. Maybe you bring some prototypes, maybe you bring a video that you show, a bunch of videos, some pictures. You see what I'm saying? And then people get into it. And then if people have an incentive, they earn something, they get a free whatever, they're more likely to want to be part of it and be honest.
Is there, sorry, last question.
Yeah,
probably.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been really helpful. Is there like a focus group size that you have found to be the most effective?
So, yeah, personally, I like when it's odd number.
That makes sense.
Like 3 or 5. More than 5, it's a zoo.
Got it.
Usually. Also, it depends the time that you have. And if it's too long, it doesn't work. So 3 or 5. And what else? Oh, yeah. And you want to record. And maybe what you want to do is to have more than one in-person interviewing, mostly when you start. That way you become better because you learn from the other person interviewing while you're also interviewing. You know, that way you just get more efficient at 2 people. If you have 3 and you have 2 interviewers, sort of work. If you have 5 and you have 2 interviewers, definitely work. If you have more than 2, these people may be overwhelmed by the number of people interviewing.
And okay, actually, last question. How long is too long for an interview?
Well, again, you know, I would say you can easily do an hour with 3 people. 5 is most likely not enough time. So 5, it could be that you do 2 hours, but maybe a little bit less than 2 hours. If the people are really engaged, the time goes really fast.
Right.
If they are getting something for it and engaged. You know, another thing that I recommend, but it's not an absolute necessity, but I think it's so much better, is you take people that are interested in the subject. It's not a necessity, but it's better. Then there's another type of qualitative research, is when you do this with experts. So it's called proxy qualitative interview. And so you take an expert, someone that is highly recommended, and in that situation, you go ask the expert, and you get different type of answer oftentimes. But they're also very important because they have an industry trend more than a consumer trend. Oftentimes, the more they are expert, the less they know about the consumer, and the more they know about the industry. So
those are like the dentist, toothpaste
kind
of interviews?
Toothpaste, exactly. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop asking questions now. I think
no, thank you, Danica. It's awesome. So
thank you.
You know, like I have a daughter who goes to the university, and she asked me what is the thing that I really need to do. She goes to UCLA, and I told her try to take a qualitative research method class. And she was like, what is it? I explained it to her, and then she says, fantastic, that's what I want to do. And she is trying to take this class, but because of the major, minor, and all this, it doesn't come right. But I've hopefully explained her enough that she sees that it's very important. So I strongly recommend that you do that. And I strongly don't recommend that you do a questionnaire. Right? Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question, Professor.
Yes.
Just while you do like interview and like your friends and people who surround you might be the same type person, so that may cause a same result while asking your question.
Yes, it's true. So yeah, if you ask maybe your friend, so the friend are very convenient sample to use in order to do interviews, and they're going to be happy to help. So that's also very good. you will be surprised that they have the same opinion, but it's possible that it'd be too similar, not the same, but too similar. So, you know, the benefit is maybe they'll help you very fast. So you may say, why don't I start with them? And based on the answer that I have with them, the next batch of people will be different, but at least I have this basis. Because sometimes it's hard to find people that will give you the time. But your comment is very true. I agree. You don't want to be too much using this as the only type of sample. So
yeah, so
yeah.
the result will, like, the sample will not be the diversity, so that's cause my result are not
Yeah, it will be
yeah.
an issue. You know, again, if I use Zara, and if you understood what I'm saying, imagine you take Zara, just people in Tokyo, and imagine that the people in Berlin are going to like what the people in Tokyo want. It's not going to work, right? Oh, even better, because Zara is Spanish. Imagine you do this just with the people in Madrid. And you say, we're a Spanish company, we're the best, Spanish are the best. Anyway, we're going to take the people in Madrid. What do the people in Madrid want? And expect that that's going to be what the people in London and Los Angeles and Beijing want. No, it won't work. So yeah, so you have to sort of be looking for some diversity in order to get a diverse opinion. But if you take too much diversity, it's also possible that you need to have a large number of people being interviewed in order to find some kind of common thread as well for a specific target. So it's good to know those biases, but you can't look for perfection. You see, research, big problem with research as well is to look for perfection. If you look for perfection, it's going to take too much money, too much time. And at the end, when you're finally happy with the result, the opportunity is gone because too much time went by. There's no such a thing in business that is zero risk. So research is only good in order to minimize the risk. There's no such a thing as doing research to get zero risks. That's another very important point. You can only minimize. And so here's the slide that says, okay, so the world is changing, the environment is changing. What should you do? You should do research and look in your environment. What's your environment? It's made of the micro environment and the macro environment. All of these have an influence on the decision that you're going to take. So it's important to look at each one of these as a source of opportunity. What do you think is the number one opportunity in the environment?
Breathing?
Which one?
Nothing. Forget it.
The number one source in your environment of opportunities are the customers. The customers is the most important source. And so therefore, the microenvironment has huge potential of opportunities. When you do this review of the opportunities, you do this for the sake of creating your pest analysis. But the pest analysis is translated into the SWOT. And the most important part of the SWOT is the opportunity. Strengths and weaknesses are internal. Opportunity and threats are external. So the strengths of the company, in that situation, the strength of Andrew James is that he's created a lot of music before, he's done some studio, he has some kind of charisma. The weaknesses is that he does not understand social media and he hasn't done much social media and is weak at communicating about what he does. I just give you some example. The opportunity is that the rap is the largest music genre. The threat is that there are a lot of young people and lots of people trying to create rap music. So I just give you an example of a SWOT, which probably looks a little bit like the one you will supply tonight. But the one I just gave you are very obvious because I was able to come up with them in a matter of 5 seconds. So when you spend a week 7 people on a subject, you want to be better than one person in 5 seconds. So that's your objective. Can I do better in a week than in 5 seconds? So you elaborate on these. These are correct, the one I gave you, but they are just not sufficient. So when we look at Chobani, what was the opportunity? Chobani was a company that started making $100. A year after, they were making $1 billion. Day one, $100. Day 365, $1 billion. Why did they succeed? What was the opportunity? The opportunity was that the milk company making yogurt, no, the yogurt company making yogurt were using bad milk. And if you use good milk, you make good yogurt, and people could see the difference between a bad yogurt and a good yogurt. If you use good milk and make good yogurt, but people don't see the difference, there's no point. Keep serving them bad yogurt with bad milk because they don't see the difference. Because maybe bad yogurt for them is good yogurt. Maybe you think good yogurt tastes like this, but if people think good yogurt tastes like that, that's fine. The reality is Chobani was correct. The people could see the difference between his yogurt and every other yogurt based on the fact that he used good milk. This was not rocket science. Use good milk, you will make good yogurt, and people would see the difference. He went from making $100 to making $1 billion. The opportunity is use good milk and people will see it. Fiesta Auto Insurance is a company that started making $100 a year after they were making $1 billion. What was the opportunity? Is they selling auto insurances to Hispanics? The opportunity is there are a lot of Hispanics who need help with insurance in the United States of America. That's the opportunity. Try to learn to see opportunities. Jesse Eadsler is a music artist, rapper, and author, amateur sports, and entrepreneurs. He, 1994, wanted to be a rapper, but he couldn't do it. And he heard that there was the Knicks, the basketball team in New York, that was looking for a new theme song. So he says, you know what, let me create the new theme songs and then see if I can get to someone that will hear my song and take it for the team. So he created Go New York Go, that became a hit music in 1991 and was used by the Knicks basketball team. Unfortunately, he was not very savvy and sophisticated. He didn't really get all the royalties he should have got, and he made very little money from this. However, the opportunity is that he met a lot of famous people. With the famous people, he flew a lot of private jets. And as he flew private jets, he saw a hole, he saw a problem, which was the system that was offering private jets was not very good. So he went to see the biggest private jet company in the world called NetJet, and he gave them an offer, and he asked them to loan him, a nobody with no money. He asked NetJets to loan him, I repeat, a few planes, a few jet planes. Eventually, NetJets thought it was funny, and they loaned him a few jet planes, and he created the company called Market Jets, which he sold for several hundred millions of dollars, eventually a few years after to NetJets. With his few $100 million, what did he do? Nothing. He partied and lost all the money. But then he said, you know what? I think I can do it again. I need to find another opportunity. He couldn't think of one, but he wanted to get back in shape. So he says, to get back in shape, I should start running marathon. So he trained for marathon. He never did this before. And then he found another big opportunity. What was that? He found that people were drinking water in order to train for marathon. And he said, come on, there's nothing better than water. And then he came up with the idea of drinking coconut water. So then he trained the marathon with coconut water and saw immediate results. And then he said, you know what? A lot of people want to drink something better than water, mostly when they train sports. So he created a brand of coconut water called Zico. And he had not much money, so he went to see Coca-Cola and he sold Zico for over $1 billion. Now, he was older, smarter, so he didn't waste all of his money, and he invested his money wisely, and now he's the owner of the Atlanta Hawks NBA basketball team. So that's what a musician person did, who started not being very sophisticated and eventually understood the concept of opportunity. So opportunity are very important. Here are two examples. One, 35% of pool in SoCal are in need of repair according to the SoCal Pool Bureau. Versus 2, Max could offer an online bidding platform for pool repair. Which one is an opportunity? Is it 1 or is it 2?
Number 1.
It's number 1. That's absolutely correct. An opportunity is not what you're going to do. An opportunity is not what you're going to do. An opportunity is not what you are going to do. An opportunity is a change in the market. It's a data and information that you can take advantage of. So the second one is telling people what they're going to do. An opportunity is not what you are going to do. Let's look at another one. 1 or 2. Which one is an opportunity? There's an opportunity to use online and wireless technology to allow people to use their car to give taxi services. Max could use his entrepreneurial skills to offer a competitive bidding online platform for taxi services, kind of like Uber. Which one is an opportunity? Is it 1 or 2?
The first one.
The first one, correct. Because an opportunity is not what you should do. So maybe tonight I will find a lot of people writing opportunities, which is Andrew James should do X, Y, and Z. Andrew James should do X this. Andrew James should do. All the Andrew James should do X are not opportunity. These are tactics or strategies, ideas. Ideas are not opportunities. Ideas are what you're going to do. What you're going to do are not opportunities. An opportunity is just a statement. It's going to rain for the next 2 weeks, according to the meteo.com website. Okay, so who cares? Well, people that sell umbrella, they care. That's an opportunity to sell more umbrellas. Gas prices is going to go up by 20%. I'm not saying what you should do. Well, people are going to buy more electric cars. People are going to produce, business are going to produce and sell more electric cars. So opportunities is a problem, a change, a hole, a situation, a complaint, a dissatisfaction that you can take advantage of. And where are these? Where do you mine these? You mine them in the environment again, by asking people questions, by looking at the data in the environment. First thing, secondary data analysis finding changes. Second thing, go talk to people and ask them why. And then from this, you get those IDs. Those IDs get converted into your OIST, opportunities, IDs, strategies, and tactics. And that's it. Once you do this, this project of consulting is extremely easy. Without this consulting project is extremely hard. So getting the OIST to work is number 1. Here you have Nutella. Their sales going up because it's very sweet and people like sweet. However, you could look at the Nutella and find that it's got a lot of sugar and it's using palm oil. However, people are complaining about the palm oil and the sugar and all of this. So that's a threat, but at the same time, it's an opportunity. So then you could create sort of a Nutella without the palm oil and without the sugar. So Nutella didn't have any much competitors before, and now they have many competitors who are not using palm oil and are not using as much sugar. They're using all kinds of other oil, which is not as bad to the environment. So what could they do? Well, they could do the same before they wait for all the competitors to do what they should be doing. They could do it before the competitors are doing it, since they're controlling the market and they are the market leader. Underwood Wine is a company that was trying to sell wine. There's millions of companies trying to sell wine, and there's millions of companies that are not doing very well. Underwood Wine was not doing well. They were actually about to say, let's go and do something else. At that time, they threw their last money on a big party. The big party had an insurance request, which was there was no glass at this party. How can you have no glass when there's a wine tasting party? So then they said, you know what, let's go around the insurance and put the wine inside aluminum can. They did this just to go around the insurance. But this made a big change because this company that was making $10,000 in a matter of weeks started selling this product. Underwood, that was the first one selling in can, and started selling for hundreds of millions of dollars. They were very happy and thanked with the art the insurance company for having forced them to come up with an innovation that now is an innovation that is copied by thousands of different wine companies. So opportunity here was the fact that there's people that want to drink wine inside an aluminum can, because that way they can go camping, they can go picnic, they can do whatever they want that is different than the glass bottle. Maybe in some weird way they think that they're saving the environment. Whatever it is, there was an opportunity that nobody saw, and they went after this opportunity, not even realizing it. Which is the number one opportunity? First is the customer. So it's very important. What is the number one threat? Number one threat is your competitors. That's the most common. Here's what the students did. The students came to me and said, hey, professor, I noticed that my grandma don't remember. She forgot her pill. And she forgot if she took her pill or she didn't take her pill. So she has this little container and she opened it, take the pill, forget about it. I had this idea of creating a cap, which is the RX timer cap. You put it on top, and then it tells you when it's the last time that you opened this. That way you can see if you forgot or didn't forget to take your pill. These students came up with this, and eventually now he's selling it to CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, Costco. Is selling it everywhere. He's already retired at 30 years old. Okay, so what was the opportunity here?
That people have trouble remembering whether or not they've taken their medication when they're getting up there in years.
Exactly. Grandma forget. Exactly. That's the opportunity. People forget. So that problem comes up with a solution. And the students did this after taking the marketing class. He says, oh, I know what to do. Was he an engineer? Not at all. He just found the system with the cap that takes the time, and then he created himself the prototype by using glue. And eventually he created the prototype himself, created a pitch deck, went to I think it was Rite Aid, the first one, and then sold it, and then sold it to everywhere, and then he became very successful. So it can be done for anything. This is not just for the music industry. It can be, these students knew nothing about medical and whatever. It just figured out. The idea worked. Strategies and business is a question of having an organized thought in your head. From big things, you need to do small things in order to achieve big things. So you need to break it down. You need to create the milestones, the steps. And therefore, this is called management, strategic management, marketing management, thinking about the plans, the strategies, and the tactics. The strategy is the long-term, high-level thing, and the tactics is the short-term details. So it's from big to small, or from small to big. What are the various strategies? So I'm going to go through a set of strategies. There's a basic ANSOF strategies. They call ANSOF from the author, Polish economist. And you have the market penetration, which means you sell to the same people the same thing. So you sell Coca-Cola. Now you just want to sell more Coca-Cola, so you make the bottle bigger. Product development is you're going to sell the Coca-Cola in a different way. So maybe you add a flavor. Maybe it's Diet Coke. Maybe it's caffeine-free Coke. Maybe it's a vanilla flavor Coke. It's a new product. Market development is selling to a different group of people. So you're finding out that the people drinking Coca-Cola are between 5 years old and 60 years old. And then you're wondering why the 60 to 100 years old don't drink it. So you find these people and you're going to advertise to these people in a different way for them to be interested to drink Coca-Cola. That's market development. And then diversification is you say, you know what, we're going to sell Coca-Cola ice cream, Coca-Cola furniture. So it has to be a totally different product for a different market. So it's not just the combination of a new product for a new group of people, because that would mean it's two strategies, product development and market development. Diversification is significantly different. So it's like Arrowhead Water starting to sell fuel or cigarettes, something extremely different. So unfortunately, that square is at the bottom right, and it's a little distracting by thinking it's just a new product market development. It's much more than this, very different. The Porter's generic concepts are overall cost leadership is you try to sell it as cheap as possible. The idea is to be the lowest price. Focus means you sell it to a specific group of people. Differentiation means the product looks very different and people recognize it as different, it's used in a different way. Oftentimes it ends up to be for different people as well, but the focus is not the people, it's the product being different. And in the middle of the road is a product that sort of is acceptable for everyone else. So Walmart, you see, I use a very generic shoe, Ryka shoes. Ryka is oftentimes famous for the people that work in the medical health industry because they see it in the catalog for doctors and nurses and so forth, that specific brand. And it's mostly targeted after women. So you don't see any men wearing Ryka shoes, it's women only. And then differentiation, I use the Yeezy shoes because they definitely look different. And then I use Skechers as the brand that's maybe more universal, everyone finds that it's okay, nothing more than that. The competitive strategies from a value discipline is, the first one is operational excellence, means you're the best one in the way your company performs and get people satisfied, and it's easy to use, it's convenient. Customer intimacy means you have the best rapport and relationship with the customers. They know you, maybe there's a club and you're part of the club. And then product leadership is your product is seen as the best one in its category. Maybe people see the iPhone as the best one, or I use WD-40, which is an oil, which is somewhat the most common oil that people will use against rust or in order to lubricate something. It's known as being the best. Now, you also have the market positioning competitive strategy, which is how you work from a market share perspective. The market leader is trying to have the largest market share, and the market challenger is trying to be sort of compared with the biggest company with the biggest market share. So it's like McDonald's versus Burger King. Then the market followers is you're going to not be the most famous, the biggest one, but you're going to quickly learn from the challenger and from the leader, and you're going to take a little bit of a back seat, learning from them and being the third choice. And then you have the market niche, which is sort of the focus, is you're going after a specific group of customers. So Ruby's Dinner is a type of fast food burger that you don't find everywhere, but they tend to be in affluent cities, just specific to maybe the ocean side or whatever for this specific group of people, tourists or things like that.